Hey everyone, it's nice to see you again. Hope you've all been well, and I'm really glad to be sending out another lecture to you guys relatively quickly, right, compared to some of the other ones. I'm sending this out because I want to continue our talk that we started with the last video. The topic was thinking deeper, and that was part 1. Today is part 2, and I think in this series we're actually going to have a few videos where we'll continue to get into this idea. Until now, we've talked a lot about thoughts and the power that they can have in our lives. Now we're talking about how to better control and deal with those thoughts, so that way we can make better decisions, and we can be a lot more happier in the future. Now today, as I start off today's lesson, I want to tell you guys 2 stories, okay? These stories are both very, very different, but they have the same point. So let's get started. Now, my first story is about a very, very famous building in New York City that I'm sure you guys could guess in the next 5 seconds. Throw it out there, tell me what building you think I'm talking about. Did you say it yet? I don't know, I can't hear you because this isn't live. But I'm talking about the Empire State Building. Now, the Empire State Building is one of the most famous landmarks, not only in New York City, but in all of the world. For a long time, it was actually the tallest building in the world. And when people think of New York, they think of things like the Statue of Liberty, Central Park, Wall Street, but then they always also think of the Empire State Building. It's really, really famous, and for a good reason. Do you guys know when the Empire State Building was actually built? It was built in 1930. What? That is over 90 years ago. Now think about that for a second. Obviously, that was before I was born, you were born. That was even before our parents and even most of our grandparents were born. How different must have things been back then compared to now? Even if you look back at the last 15 or 20 years, do you know how much things have changed in this short amount of time? Things like YouTube, Uber, smartphones, tablets, these are all things that were invented during your lifetimes, and look how crazy of an impact they have had. That's how quickly things change. But go back in time 90 years, and none of those things existed. But when they built the Empire State Building, how were they able to really defeat all of the obstacles and limitations that they had to get this done? Do you think they had all the power tools and fancy equipment and cranes and tractors that we have today? No. Did they have great roads and infrastructure to get all the supplies to the site in the middle of Manhattan? No. They didn't have any of that stuff, yet they were able to get this done. That's really crazy. The scale of the project was massive. Every day, hundreds of trucks would have to drive from outside of Manhattan to come and transport thousands of tiles, bags of cement, sand, and lime, and anything else they needed to the construction site. You know, at one point, they would have 200 trucks coming in one day just to deliver all the supplies they needed. They would have over 3,500 workers working on the building at one time. And so that these workers wouldn't have to leave, and so that they could keep working, on the lower floors that were already finished, they would build cafes and concession stands, and they would tap water so that people could drink water and eat lunch and do everything on site. The construction crews were working so fast that they were averaging 4.5 floors of this building per week. Now that is just crazy when you consider all the limitations and everything that they didn't have that we have today. The total building ended up being 102 stories tall. And do you know how long it took to build it? It only took 1 year and 45 days. That's only 410 days to build this entire thing from bottom all the way to top. And guess what? That was actually 12 days faster than what they projected it would take. Isn't that crazy? When the Empire State Building was built, they called it one of the most fascinating pieces of architecture in the US and one of the greatest accomplishments in engineering history. But everyone, let me tell you something. You know, it wasn't the hands of these workers that built that building. It was their hearts, and it was the kind of mindset that they had. Back then, these people, when they had to look at this huge challenge, and they didn't have any of the resources or supplies that we have today, do you know why they were able to build that? Because in their heart, they had this thought, we need to overcome this. We need to push through, and even if it looks impossible, get it done. There's nothing that we can't do if we challenge ourselves. So let's work for it, let's not look at the situation, and let's keep going forward. In 2021, we obviously have much better equipment and tools, better technology, better infrastructure, and our workers have access to a lot more skills and training. But do you think if we met a kind of challenge that was on the same scale as what they met back then, would we be able to overcome that difficulty? Look at yourself. Look at your friends around you. Would you guys be able to do that? Now, I'm going to tell you a second story that takes place much more recently in modern times, but there's the same idea. You know, I was on the news the other day and I saw an article that caught my eye. This was the title of the article. Iowa wrestler Spencer Lee wins national title on torn ACL. Quote, excuses are for wusses, end quote. Now it sounds like a funny title, right? But when I clicked on this and read the article, I was completely shocked. University of Iowa wrestler Spencer Lee had just won his third national championship. That in itself is crazy. But you know what? He was actually also on a 35-match winning streak, which means he hadn't lost a single match out of the past 35. But do you know what's even more crazy? After he won this third championship, when they came to interview him, he revealed that 8 days prior, he had just torn his second ACL, which means that his other leg's ACL was already torn. Spencer Lee won this wrestling match with both ACLs torn. Now, if you don't know what an ACL is, let me explain it very simply. In your leg, you have your thigh bone, you have your shin bone, and then you have your knee, which is connecting the two, right? Well, it's not just the bones holding everything together, but you have tissue in your body which holds everything together and allows you to move. The ACL is a very, very strong piece of tissue that is connecting your thigh bone to your shin bone right at the knee. This is what helps you to walk, run, to maneuver back and forth, and to be very quick on your feet because it's holding it all together like very strong glue. Now imagine if that piece of tissue holding all this together was torn. Would you be able to walk or run or jump or use your legs? No. Athletes who play basketball, football, and other sports tear their ACLs very often. It's a common injury, but it's very painful, so you have a hard time standing or walking. When you do stand, if you try to put any weight on your leg, it hurts so much so you can't even walk on it. And you have no balance and you feel very unstable. This is a type of injury where if you tear an ACL, you have to rest, you can't play your sports, you can't do your exercises, you have to rest for a long, long time, go to physical therapy and get a lot of treatment in order to recover. The thing is, Spencer Lee won this championship 7-0, okay? With both ACLs torn, which means he could not rely on his legs at all, and probably it was very painful. Now, how was he able to do that even though his body has so many limitations and the situation is so difficult and so hard? Well, after he won in that interview, this is what he said. Take a look.
I mean, 8 days ago, I tore my ACL in my other knee. I'm wrestling with no ACLs, and you know, whatever, man. I didn't want to tell anyone because F excuses. Excuses are for wusses. And you know what? That was a tough turn for me. I could barely wrestle. I could barely shoot. I can't sprawl. But you know what? I believed in my coaching staff and everyone that believed in me, and here I am. So there you guys go.
How did you handle the self-doubt?
Well, I mean, there was no doubt. It was just, hey, no one else can do this but you. My teammates, they tell me no one can do this but you know, and I believed in them, so.
Were there tough moments on the match?
I mean, yeah, I can't really wrestle, but you know, it doesn't matter. I'm getting ready for what's next, and you know, whatever's next is what's next, and I'll be ready to go, so don't worry about me, okay?
So you just won your third national championship.
Yeah, I guess so.
No ACL on the one leg. The other one you tore back.
I tore my other one in the national finals against Jack Bueller in the second period. So
that is
I've won 2 national titles on ACLs, so it's been a lot of fun. So, and no matter what, we're gonna get through it, no matter what it is, no matter how hurt you are, how sick you are, how much everyone doubts you, how much everyone thinks, but it doesn't matter. All you gotta do is believe in those around you in your support network and the group of people that you believe in, and you can do anything. So.
All right, everyone, you heard it for yourself. The first thing he said was, excuses are for wusses. And the second thing he said was, you have to win no matter what. That's what defines a champion. All right, now, I'm not gonna say just because you give excuses sometimes that means you're a wuss, or you always have to win no matter what. That's not the point here. The point is, inside of Spencer Lee's heart, this mindset that excuses, no, I'm never gonna make an excuse. And also, I need to win no matter what difficulty I have, no matter what limitations I may face, it doesn't matter, I'm going to win. These two mindsets in his heart were bigger than the limitations his body felt. In other words, it wasn't his body that was leading his heart, it was his heart that was leading his body. If his body was leading his heart, what would he think? Oh, it hurts so much, it's impossible. This is the championship game. I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna win this match. That other guy, he doesn't have torn ACLs. I can't do this. I forfeit. I'm gonna lose and it hurts. If his body was leading his heart, maybe that's what he would say. But isn't it amazing, everyone, what kind of power the heart has? What did his heart tell him? No excuses, I can do it. Yeah, it may be painful, it may be difficult, but no, I'm a champion and I'm going to win no matter what. His heart was carrying him through that championship match, and that's why he won. You guys, it's the same thing with those people who built the Empire State Building. What would their bodies tell them? What would their eyes tell them when they look at this situation? This is impossible. Are you kidding? We're gonna build a 102-story building? There's no building like that in the world. We don't have the supplies or the equipment to be able to do that. Let's wait another 10 or 20 years until we have the technology. Then it'll be easier. You want us to build this in 1 year? That's crazy. But they didn't think that at all. Their hearts of being able to overcome and power through the circumstances no matter what is what led their bodies to be able to do this work and to get it done. And get it done not only quickly, but to build one of the most beautiful and most adored buildings in the world. You guys, as I just said, it is the heart that leads the body. You know, the body is directly affected by everything that happens around us in our environment, right? By the people we see, the interactions we have, the obstacles we face, and all the difficulties that are in front of us. But the heart isn't actually directly affected by that. For example, my body could feel very, very tired one day. Oh, I don't want to exercise, I just want to sleep. But in my heart, if I have that thought, no, I don't want to give up. I want to keep pushing forward towards my goal, then my heart can actually lead my body to overcome that tiredness and to overcome that exhaustion and to be able to exercise and push through no matter what my body is telling me. But what happens if I let what's happening to my body, meaning what's happening outside, what if I let that affect my heart? Well, then when things get difficult, when things happen that I don't like, when something happens that I don't agree with or that makes me uncomfortable, and that impacts my heart, what am I gonna think? I can't do this. This is too hard. This is impossible. This is too challenging. I'm gonna give up. I want to avoid this. I don't want to have to deal with this. I can't do this. And then our hearts fall into despair and they fall into hopelessness. That's what happens when we accept those thoughts into our heart. Everyone, to bring it back to what we've been talking about this whole time, the type of thought that we accept into our heart is what determines what direction we're going to go in our day-to-day lives and for our lives in the future. Most of us are in much better circumstances than someone like Spencer Lee or the people in the 1930s who had to build the Empire State Building. But are we able to do what they did and accomplish what they accomplished? Unfortunately, for the most part, no, we don't. When things get a little bit hard, we start to complain. We want to run away. We fall into despair and we want to give up. But why is that? It's because that thought that we have accepted is what is leading us down that path. Now, for each of us, that thought could be different, but it could look something like this. You're miserable. You're dumb. You can't succeed at school. It's too hard. You don't have a future. Give up. Other people have it better than you, but you're not able to make it happen. Everyone, you're letting everything that's happening to your body, in other words, everything that you see, everything that's in your environment, directly affect your heart, and now your heart has fallen into despair and darkness as well. But what did we talk about in the last lecture? Don't just accept every thought that comes to you as it is. Challenge that thought and fight that thought. There is a voice inside of you that's always going to try to bring you down, that's always going to try to lead you down a different path than the one that's best for you. But challenge that voice, challenge those thoughts, and check them to see if they're true. If you have the thought, I can't do it, think about it again. It may be hard, but is it impossible? How many other thousands of kids have graduated before me, have succeeded, have gone on to do great things when they had even more difficult circumstances than I? Maybe you have the thought that the way I'm going now, this is the only way I can go, this is the best way for me. Is it really that way? Is there actually no other way available to you? What opportunities do I have that I'm actually just letting pass by, either because I'm too scared or maybe I'm too lazy to actually pursue it? Who are the people around me who, if I engage with, they can actually help me on that path? When we fight with these thoughts and when we check them one by one, do you know what happens? Then those thoughts are able to be thrown away and a new heart can form in us. I can do this. This is not impossible. There is another, better way. And there are people who can help me. You guys, before we end today, I want to tell you a really quick story. Do you guys know the restaurant KFC? It's one of the most famous fast food restaurants in the world. They literally have branches all over the world, not just in America. The thing is, Colonel Sanders, the founder of KFC, do you know when he started this restaurant? When he was 65 years old, after he had already retired. But he really liked making fried chicken, and he really believed that he had the best recipe. So what he did is he went to restaurant to restaurant to restaurant, trying to convince these owners to partner with him to start selling his chicken. But guess what? He met rejection over 1,000 times, 1,009 times to be exact, before the first person said that they would use his recipe to start selling chicken. If you were rejected 1,009 times back to back, you're already 65 years old, you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of time, you're tired, it's difficult, your body is telling you all these things, your eyes are telling you all these things are against you and it's not going to happen, then wouldn't you give up? But guess what? Colonel Sanders didn't let what was happening affect his heart. In his heart, he had this firm heart. No, the chicken I have is the best recipe in the world. If people taste this chicken, they're gonna be blown away. There's nothing like this being made right now. I have the best recipe. So he kept going. And then after 1,009 tries, on try 1,010, history was made. And as you know, now KFC is one of the most successful restaurants, and all of us have probably been there, and the chicken is really good. What kind of heart you have, that is what determines what you can do and what you can't do. It's not your circumstances, your environment, it's not what is happening to you. If in your heart there is a dream, there is hope, there's a thought that is leading you to overcome these things, then guess what? You can do great things. Things even greater than what Spencer Lee did, or even than the people who built the Empire State Building. That is just a sample. But you guys, it all depends on what kind of thoughts you're going to listen to. Are you going to listen to the thought that I can't do this, this is impossible, I'm going to give up, and this is the only way for me? Or, no, I can do this, there is a way, there are people who can help me, this is not impossible, I'm not going to give up. Everyone, it's all up to you. Your heart is going to lead you one way or the other, but are you going to let what's happening to your body affect that? Or are you going to let your heart overcome all of those things? You guys, I really hope you enjoyed this lecture. We don't have any follow-up questions today, but we'll continue in the next lecture. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe rest of the week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.